And I want to pick up on the words that they used, Father Pollitt, and they saying that there is just too much division in the world. We need a pope who hopefully will bring about peace. Not to say that Pope Francis wasn't a strong advocate of that, but I want to bring this word division and place it inside the church itself. Earlier, we alluded to the politics of the Catholic Church. Yes, what is going on right now is both a spiritual process of electing the new pope, but they're also said to be politics. You mentioned off air that this is part of the reason why they get rid of the phones, devices. There's a sweep, a technical sweep of the very room that they're going to be electing the Pope in. Talk to us about that.
Yes, Xoli, I wonder if there's going to be any withdrawal symptoms tonight from some of those cardinals without devices. But yeah, I think it is a spiritual process, and that's why they get locked up. They're not going to be having conversations or having inputs. It's done in silence, in quiet, in a spirit of prayer, this process that is underway now. But beforehand, there has been politicking. We can't say there is no... We're human beings, huh? Yes. And human beings politic. I mean, for example, yesterday, a report was released called the Cardinals Report. It was released by quite conservative Catholics from the United States, where they listed a lot of the cardinals that could perhaps be Pope, and they tried to point out which ones were maybe kind of a bit loose on the tradition of the church, which ones were really faithful, which ones, for example, would advocate for LGBTI rights, which ones wouldn't. So there has been politicking, and I think that's one of the reasons as well that they take away all these devices so that they are not impacted by a lot of the politicking that is going on. I mean, we come out of a tumultuous papacy. Huh? Francis really, I think, shocked a lot of people, in as much as he was someone who went out into the world. Inside the church, I think some people were surprised at how far he went. For example, you know, his real push for migrants and refugees. Yes. His real push for the poor and the homeless in Rome, building toilets and showers on St. Peter's Square for homeless people to use. You know? His questions of who am I to judge when it comes to LGBTI people. I mean, this shocked people, huh? I remember you, at the time of his ill health, saying that he also brought a lot of women into the church. We're going to talk about that because I'm going to bring that back. We had very strong conversations on this channel today about the involvement, or should we say non-involvement of women, particularly in the process of electing the Pope. But let's track back, Father Pollitt. The voting process now is underway. Let's move 2 steps ahead. The moment between voting and then the white smoke comes about. There is a room called the Room of Tears. Explain to us, so take us through the process of the white smoke bellowing out of that very chimney we're seeing on air right now, and all the way into the Room of Tears. What would have happened? So each cardinal casts his vote, they count them. When there's a 2/3 majority, there's 133, the biggest conclave in history probably. It's normally been about 120, it's 133. So if he gets 2/3 majority, which is 89, the first thing that he will be asked is, do you accept the office? And if he says, I accept the office, then immediately he's taken off to this Room of Tears, which there's been beautiful pictures of the last few days. In there, the tailors have made different size of the Pope's cassock. They're all hanging there very neatly with anything else that he needs, so that the cardinal can change out of his red into the white. Yeah. And then, once he's done that, he will go back into the Sistine Chapel, where each cardinal will come forward and greet him and give him his obedience. Now, it's called the Room of Tears because we are told that when men go into that room after they're elected, this is the first time perhaps that they are alone after they've heard that they are now going to be the Pope. How much time in that tears, in that room? As long as they want, as long as they want. I mean, they're not going to let them go on there for 2 hours, but, you know, a reasonable amount of time. He can be alone, he can change. And apparently many of these men land up shedding tears just by virtue of the fact of the role that they now play in the church and what is going to be expected of them. It's kind of almost a little room where that emotional release can take place.
The enormity of the role they're about to undertake. And then there is the name that they're going to choose. Who chooses that name? Is it them? And how is that name communicated to the public?
So I've been wondering, when I was watching them going into the Sistine Chapel this afternoon, I was thinking, do these guys, have they really got a name in mind? Because they choose the name themselves. And the name is quite important because the name is normally the name of a saint. And they give us a kind of indication of what direction the papacy will take. So, for example, Benedict chose Benedict because Benedict was a great apostle to Europe. And Pope Benedict thought that Europe really needed to be re-evangelized. And so he chose the name Benedict, which kind of meant he wanted to try and re-evangelize Europe. Secularism in Europe was a real issue for him. Francis was the saint of creation, the saint of the poor. Pope Francis chose Francis. So they will be asked when they are elected as well, what name do you want to be known as? They will announce that name to the cardinals. And then once they are finished in the Sistine Chapel, the new pope is presented to the world on the balcony at St. Peter's. The cardinal deacon goes out, he announces, with great joy, we have a pope, and he will give the cardinal's name. So if it was Cardinal John Matthew, he'd say Cardinal John Matthew, and then he'd say, known as Pope, whoever the Pope has chosen as his name. And that's when the world will know on that balcony who the new Pope is and what name he will go by.
Very quickly before we hand over to business, Father Pollitt, let's stick with the theme of politics. In fact, perhaps it is worth talking about what we are seeing right now on screen. These are women, and these are women of the Catholic Church. These are the biggest followers of the Catholic Church. Today on the channel, a huge complaint came about to say, why is it that women are excluded from this process at a time when women in society are taking leadership positions, positions of influence? Is the church not evolving fast enough? Is that not going to affect the church going forward?
I think it's a burning question on the agenda, and I think Pope Francis started to open it up, although many people feel that he didn't go far enough. But you are right that the majority probably of Catholics, being women, are excluded from this process. The church has always taught that it is men who take on the role of ministry. It is only men in the Catholic Church who can be ordained. Other churches have started to ordain women. They have evolved. The Catholic Church still holds to that as a key teaching of the church. In fact, in 1992 or 3, Pope John Paul II said that one couldn't even discuss the ordination of women to the priesthood because this is not possible, because this is not the church. Jesus ordained, he would have said. Jesus, whether they were ordained is another story, but Jesus had 12 men as his followers, and therefore the succession was given to men. That is the teaching of the church. But I think the church is starting to grapple with that question. Pope Francis, in the synod that he held last year in 2024 and 2023, certainly opened the door for discussions about women. Women have been given roles in the Vatican to head up departments that they've never had in history before, but they still are not in the conclave. So you are right, there are no women that will be voting for a pope.
Let's stick with the theme of politics as a final question to you, at least on this segment, and talk about, you've already alluded to the subject, the release of this report by some of the people in the United States. There is a name, Father Donnelly, I think.
Dolan.
Dolan. So
Cardinal Dolan.
Cardinal Dolan. That seems to be a name that it's getting traction a lot on social media. How many other names are getting the amount of traction as this particular cardinal? And might we have a pope coming out of the United States? Where's your feeling?
This is a guessing game. I would suggest that probably there's not going to be a pope from the United States. And the two reasons I'd immediately suggest that is, first of all, the church is a strange kind of institution. You know, to have power centered politically and economically in the world in a superpower like the United States and have a pope who comes from that superpower, the church doesn't work like that. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this will be probably slightly controversial, the image that was recently put out by the United States President, Donald Trump, of himself
on his social media platform, which he takes no responsibility for, by the way.
And which was retweeted by the White House, which is his administration. I think that image may have also done the American church a bit of damage. Why? Not because he did that, but because I think that many of those in the church, in high positions in the church in the US, failed to really come out and condemn that. And I think a lot of ordinary people were offended by that image, because I think it speaks of so much more, a kind of contempt for, I can do whatever I want with no consequence. And I think that the fact that cardinals and bishops in the US haven't come out strongly might also just play into the politics of this conclave.
Very interesting indeed.